War Eagle, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of A2C Network Live. This is our Auburn Family news discussion where we get together and we talk about what's going on in the world of the Auburn Family spectrum. Obviously, always heavy on the sports, but if it's Auburn, if it's orange and blue, we'll talk about it here. It is fair game to be discussed on these live shows. So thank you for joining us. If you are here for the very first time, and if you're a returner, welcome back. We appreciate you being part of our broadcast here, whether you're watching live or you're watching on the replay as well. Doesn't matter how you get it. We're just happy that you're here to be a part of the discussion and to take in what's going on in the world of Auburn Tiger fandom. So today, as always, I've got topics prepared, but anything is fair game. So as you are watching, especially if you're watching live, feel free to say hello, War Eagle. Drop a comment, a question. I'd love to hear from you as the show goes on this morning. Well, it's almost not morning right now. It's 2 minutes away from morning. So I'd love to hear from you as the show goes on. By the way, my name is Kyle. I am the editor and the owner of the E2C Network, which is a family of podcasts that cover Auburn athletics. And actually, not just Auburn athletics, anything Auburn. And speaking of which, there is a new podcast that I have an idea for, a episode, not a podcast in general, but an episode that I want to do that I think will be very interesting and fit within the spectrum of everything that we do that is Auburn related. So we won a national championship in something yesterday, and when I say we, not necessarily the university or anything like that, but Auburn won a national championship, and you probably might have seen that. It dropped last night, so kind of interested in maybe doing an episode about that. So we'll see what happens with that. Anyway, just want to cover a couple of things at the beginning of each and every show, so bear with me if you are a returner here. I do want to make sure we cover this for the new people that maybe are not familiar with how this works here and who we are and what we do. As I said, we are a podcast network first primarily, and so I want to always give you an opportunity to check out our podcast. And so in the YouTube chat, I have dropped the link for the Apple Podcast link, which is the main podcast app out there. But if the podcasts are available on any app, really, but if it's not available on yours of choice, please let me know. We will get it out there for you to the best of our abilities. Speaking of which, we are broadcasting live on YouTube primarily, but Twitter as well. Twitter folks, I always like to tell you that if you would like the better experience, to come on over to YouTube because I can keep track of all your comments and questions a lot better and stuff, but it's here if you'd rather just use this as well. But please do go check that out. If you have not, our podcasts are going to be getting really geared up here as the new year has begun. Obviously heavy on basketball. There's going to be a lot of football news coming out. We're going to be getting Auburn Roots geared back up again. Some extra episodes, meaning those are like kind of not specifically about a certain sport. Sometimes they are, but maybe they're like special topics. Those are going to be coming out. We've got a lot of ideas for those coming out. So now is a good time to hop on board. Also, we do always want to share with you opportunities to help support our network, and you can do that through being part of the the E2C Network Booster Club. You can go to patreon.com/E2C Network and sign up for as little as $1 a month to help support the content we do here and get yourself some perks. You can even be featured on a podcast if you'd like to, if that's something that interests you. We have a brand new E2C Network Booster Club member, Michael Floyd. He's a good friend, and he is very prevalent on Twitter as well, so you probably have seen him. So thank you to Michael for being part of the Booster Club, and I hope others will consider being part of that as well. I think that is the gist of it. The only other thing I want to remind you of is as we go throughout the stream, if you're enjoying what you're watching, please do hit the like button. It does help the stream out and encourage other Auburn fans to go here. So let me say hello to a couple people that popped in. I think I saw AU Grad on Twitter. Josh Lemmy here on YouTube says War Eagle. Samuel says Auburn lost a heartbreaker to basketball. or in basketball. Yes, we can talk obviously about that. The title that I have here for this broadcast is the Auburn coordinator search and Anthony Schwartz leaving, which are probably the two bigger news items right now. But Auburn does take another loss on the road. By the way, I did just drop another Inside the Jungle podcast last night, breaking down that game. So I hope you'll go check that out if you haven't, if you want our analysis of that game. Wiz Dragons here says, good morning, Frederick, War Eagle, Samuel, good morning, and War Eagle. Hoops played hard in the second half, Dusty says. Yes, they did. We need some good news with coordinators. We need some energy. I don't have a lot of good energy for you, honestly, but like we can speculate a little bit. I think there's some very small wheels turning in the coordinator search, and not necessarily about the coordinators itself. But I think if you kind of read between the lines, and I've used this phrase before, think past the sale. I've actually learned that I've been kind of misusing that a little bit. It's not to think past, like don't. Essentially, what I'm trying to get at with that is what is behind the story. Essentially, like we see a headline, that's what we think the story is, but what's actually going on behind the scenes? Think past that. Think beyond that is what I'm trying to get you to do. Let me finish Dusty's comment. He said Hoops played hard in the second half. NCAA really needs to get an update on Sharif Cooper. Here's where I'm at on the Sharif Cooper thing. I know, look, I am not a fan of Mark Emmert, the NCAA. They have done a lot of things that I do not like. But at this point, I've got to start thinking there's actually some smoke there with the whole Sharif Cooper situation. And I know it's not a popular opinion, but that's that's what I'm here for. I don't want to just sugarcoat things for you and give you what you want to hear, but I got to start thinking something's going on with that if it's taking this long. They don't just drag their feet for no reason. And I'm not sitting here to say that they did anything wrong, but they obviously have suspicions that something was off, and that's why this is taking so long. But all that being said, I do not like the NCAA. I do not like Mark Emmert. In terms of, I have never met Mark Emmert, so I don't have any reason to not like him as a person, but in the way I've seen the NCAA run, I'm not a fan of. And I know he's a big Nick Saban guy, so that automatically knocks him down a peg for me. But yes, I do agree that they played hard in the second half. You are an early riser. Is this early? This is when I started, it was 11:56 here. If that is early, oh. Well, I am a Christian, so I have church on Sundays. Now, we did not attend church actually today, but we had it online, so that's, another reason why I was up today. But I'm usually up, not too late in the morning. I slept. Usually it depends on how late I stay up editing a podcast or something. Didn't stay up too late last night, so I got up and going. I guess he was joking. I missed that part. Yeah, I'm definitely not an early riser. If we had Cooper, we could have beat Texas A&M. I think you're probably not far from the case there, Sam. We are going well, and now he's going a little bit pessimistic. I don't know that we're going to lose to Ole Miss personally, but I do think that some struggles are going to continue until we can get that figured out, especially if something's wrong with Justin. That was the scary. Jackson on YouTube. Any news on the football coaching search? Let me catch up on all the comments here as best I can, and then we'll get into some of that. I will tell you up front, I don't have a bunch of updates personally that I know of, but I do have some things I've noticed, and so obviously some things that have happened with other programs that are going to inform our situation, right? So I think there's a lot that you can read into that. While there's not a ton of news to grab at this moment, and as always, remember, we're doing this live, so news breaks. Apparently yesterday during our live stream, Tom Herman got fired, and then Sarkisian immediately became the candidate for Texas, which we know he now is, and is the new head coach there. So news can break, and things can change with our commentary here. Excuse me. Let's see. Roy, War Eagle. Sam says Kentucky and Wichita State won yesterday. They did, which is interesting. Alabama won in basketball, and I didn't believe that till I saw it either. We give them a hard time, but every once in a while they'll do some good things. You need to schedule these. Having to choose this and take my boy Slade in the snow. War Eagle. Hey, Spooky, I would love to be able to schedule them. My schedule is honestly so crazy. Here's the thing: is I try to do them in the late morning. Because that's probably the best possible time. But when we get to work week, that changes a lot. And it really depends on my availability because I work mornings and stuff like that. So you can pretty much bet there are going to be some in the mornings, the late mornings, sometimes in the afternoons, depending on what I've got going on and what news is breaking. Obviously, the Brian Harsin news broke in the evening. Had to go live then, right? Can't miss that. Jackson wants a little bit of opinion about, a little bit off topic here. It's Auburn implications, right? Eventually it will be. Sorry to get off topic, but what do you think about an 8 or even 16 team playoff? I'm a huge fan. It has to be at least 8 teams at this point. I've always wanted and said that college football should require every team that wants to be part of the big playoff to join. And look, I'm just saying things. Obviously, there's logistics here that kind of probably prevent this from happening, but this is what I feel works. I want every college football team to join one of 8 conferences. And no questions, we stop calling them Power 5. We stop all this shenanigans about, the best of 5 and all this stuff. These are the 8 conferences we recognize within the playoffs. The conference champions go to the playoff. No questions asked. If you win your conference, you go. So there's no, because here's the thing. If you compete within your conference and you go to your championship, and everybody has to play a championship game, and you play in that game and win, you have proven on the field that you are the best team representing your conference. So it's not like, let's say, and let's just use recent scenarios, right? Alabama and Georgia. Even if Georgia looks like a better team than one from the other conference, they're still not the best team from that conference if Alabama beat them, right? So they don't really have any business being there because, yeah, they might get lucky and beat Alabama a second time, or on the second go around. But I'm tired of all this conversation. I'm tired. Take the people element out of it. Let them win it on the field. 8 conferences, 8 conference championships, 8 champions go to the playoff. You can use the rankings to seed them how you'd like. That's a pretty obvious way to do that. And then you compete, and we stop all the shenanigans. But part of the reason that they love this is because it creates conversations, right? So I think that's, excuse me. 16, I think, gets a little big right now. I'd love it, personally. I love more football, but 8 is the best. I hate the NCAA. Yeah, let's see. Any idea where Auburn might hire an OC? I don't know that we are. I don't know that we're close to having an OC hired just yet. Does he keep Chad Morris? I don't see a reason why he would. Personally, I don't see it. I could be wrong, but I just don't see it happening. Do you? Who do you think the DC will be? Don't have a lot of speculation on that yet, but we can obviously get into that more as we go throughout here. Does Tank stay? That is, from what I understand, that is dependent upon a certain coach being retained, and you don't have to work hard to figure out who that is. That is coming from my source. John says Morris is gone. No chance he stays. I tend to lean his way, to be honest with you. Dusty, a coordinator with NFL experience would be my preference. Definitely somebody who can develop quarterbacks is a must. Well, that's why we hired Brian Harsin, right? Because he's a former quarterback, and he is a quarterback guy, in terms of a coach. So that should be already solved, right? And I understand you still need an offensive coordinator. You need a QB coach, which usually goes hand in hand together. But that problem should have already been solved. The Texas firing and hiring is an example of how Auburn we can do, of how Auburn all we can do now is have hope for. I missed that one. I'm sorry, E. I'm not reading that. I think it's probably just me not reading correctly. Let's see. I think it should be 8 teams. The 5 Power 5 conferences winners, the best group of 5 team, and 2 at-large teams. See, my only problem with that is then there's always going to be complaints and someone left out. I'm tired of the conversations of, I got left out. Let me call myself a national championship. Let's put them on the field. If you win your conference, these are the 8 recognized conferences. Put them on the field. If you can't win your conference, you can't go to the playoffs. I'm good with that. That means Auburn has less of a chance of making it, but I'm fine with it. Plus, you never know when one of those little rinky-dink teams will pop up and beat one of the Power 5. Steve Sark hasn't been a good head coach. I'm glad we didn't hire. I agree as well. I completely agree, Auburn fan. All right, I think I've caught up for the most part, and obviously I'll get back to as your questions and comments come in, so don't be shy. But let's talk about the coordinator search, and then we can talk about Schwartz a little bit, and then basketball if y'all like. I don't have any big updates that I know of in terms of offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator hires, but I will say that one thing that I found intriguing yesterday, and this is coming from a Boise State beat writer, as I understand him to be, and let me see if I actually have his name pulled up. BJ Rains, I think you can find him on Twitter, and he at least is a reporter for the Idaho, Boise State area. And we've seen him come up a lot in regards to the whole Brian Harsin hiring and stuff like that. But it seems like that this guy named Brad Larondo will be potentially joining Brian Harsin's staff. Now, remember, staff doesn't mean coordinator, doesn't necessarily mean coach. There's a lot more staff members. Like, perfect example is Chad Pruitt of Auburn basketball. While they call him coach, and in some ways he kind of is, he's really... and I say only, and I don't mean only, but he's only the Auburn basketball director of operations. Now, he's kind of like, I'm trying to think of a good analogy where it doesn't make me sound stupid and I don't say the wrong thing. Think of like, I don't want to say CEO, but like he's the director of operations. So he schedules things. He handles the itinerary. He handles when players go, where they go, and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of, in a way, the coach's right-hand man to do the things to help him with the things that aren't necessarily basketball related, but while still being involved with the actual sport. So Brad Larondo potentially joined the staff. He used to be this role for him in football at Boise State. So while that doesn't sound super exciting, to me, what that shows is that that's a step forward in the process, because if he does come over and join the staff as a type of director of operations or something like that, which they typically bring their own guy in, that means, okay, we're moving forward in the process. That means maybe they're going to work together to find the best fit for offensive and defensive coordinator. So I know that's not exciting, but that is one update that I can say we'll do. And here's the other thing, and I'll catch up on some of your comments and questions here, but what I'd like you to answer, how many Boise State staff, not just necessarily coaches, how many, just if you had to guess, ballpark it, how many Boise State staff members will be brought over to Auburn via Brian Harsin? What do you think about that? I'd love to hear your opinion. One person on Twitter said didn't see any more besides this. Could be right. I think there's probably a few more coming. Catching up on some of the comments here, we were talking about the playoff. John says that hurts the SEC. You're going to hate me when I say this. I am not an SEC guy. And this makes, when I say this, I understand logically this makes no sense, but this is just me. I'm just being honest. I would rather see every SEC team lose every single game, because that makes Auburn the best. Personally, and that makes them the best in a bad conference in the way, but that's just the competitive nature in me, right? I want my rivals, the people that I see the most time, to fail miserably every single time. I am not about protecting the SEC. I'm about one thing: Auburn. I don't care about the SEC. I care about it in the sense that it can help Auburn. Like, I get that. I get the logic behind that. I don't care about the SEC in terms of making them have more teams in there. One team from each conference, one champion, one spot in the playoff. Conversation over. I think 6 teams would be good. Power fives, 2 group of fives, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. Top 2 seeds having a bye, and that works. And I think that's probably the next logical step. Wiz Dragon. I do think that is the next step, but it's not what I want. Y'all asked me what I want. DC Avalos or possibly Muschamp. What I understand is Muschamp is being linked to the Texas DC job, which would make a lot of sense for him. He's already returned to Auburn once. He might as well go and return to Texas, because if you remember, he left Auburn, like Gene Chizik, when he was the defensive coordinator, to go to Texas to be the defensive coordinator, and he was actually named the coach in waiting behind Mac Brown, but chose to leave to become the Florida head coach. What might have happened if Will Muschamp, excuse me, had been just a little bit patient? Wouldn't that be crazy? We could still be talking about a Muschamp dynasty over there. I'm not saying it because, you look at the trajectory of his coaching tenure thus far. Maybe not, but Florida's good, right? But they don't. Before I say, I was going to say they're not on par with Texas in terms of resources they have available. It's comparable. I'd still lean that towards Texas. I think if Muschamp ends up at Texas, he has a much different coaching story than he currently has. Let's see. Who's even available for the DC position? Pop Winter asks. A lot of people. It's not so much a question of who's available, it's who wants it. Because that means you've got to right now come in and defend against Alabama's offense that they currently have built right now, which is the popular thing right now, and it will change. So my hope is that Brian Harsin is thinking past right now. You don't need to make a decision based off what's happening right now. That is what got us into the situation in the first place. You've got to make decisions based off of what's going to happen in the future football-wise. The offenses will become stagnant in terms of because the defenses will adjust and they'll have to change again. So if you're making a decision now, you're only going to make yourself hurt in the future. Making a decision based off of only what's going on now. He will be chief of staff in a relatively new football position. John, that's kind of what I was getting at, right? Essentially, a chief of staff, a director position, someone that helps the head coach with the business side of the angle. And I think that's what people missed yesterday is that's a huge first step because it hasn't been confirmed yet. But when the guy is expected to come over here with him, that kind of tells you something, right? Not sure about Muschamp. You have to always worry about him leaving. Yeah, he doesn't really seem to want to stay anywhere as a coordinator, so I don't know if I want to go that route. You know that you'll have a good defense for at least 1 year, but you don't know how long that'll last. Can't wait for Anthony to beat the 40 record. He might, man. That guy's fast. He's called Flash for a reason. Liaison to the AD, potentially. All right, so we've got some I asked for predictions here on how many Boise State staff members. We got 3, 2. Stereotypical Auburn fan says 4 to 5. It looks like most of the guesses there. I'd agree with that. I think 3 is the sweet spot, and I'm not even necessarily thinking any of those 3 is going to be necessarily a coach. It might be some grad assistants because those are part of his staff, right? But I think 3. And there'll be some of those filler positions after this point. Gus had his brother-in-law. At least this guy has experience as an associate AD. So not really sure about the validity of that, John. But I'll take you at your word for right now. Rumor on Twitter is McCreary is coming back. Was that supposed to be a rumor? Was there an option for Roger not to come back? I mean, obviously there's an option for him not to come back. But was that really the smartest thing for him to do? I mean, Roger has been one of the guys that I've been most impressed with over the past couple of years because you talk about being not really like a household name in terms of a DB, and a lot of people were kind of picking on him at first, but he's risen to the occasion. So he's got the most, I think. When we talk about Schwartz leaving versus someone else leaving, I think Roger would be someone that would benefit from staying. If it hurts the SEC, it can hurt Auburn, as in more than just Bama getting into the playoffs. Look, John, I get that. I wholeheartedly understand that argument, and I agree that's the logical choice, but that's just not the way I am. I want to see every SEC team fail, and I want it to be at Auburn's hand mainly. But I do not enjoy – I do not get my jollies off of watching the SEC succeed. I do not. I usually root against the SEC unless it's Vanderbilt in football, unless it's there's not really like a doldrums team in basketball. I mean, there's teams that flip-flop from time to time. But yeah. In football, I kind of feel bad for Vanderbilt. I used to feel bad for Kentucky, but they kind of have had some, sustained levels of success the last decade or so for the most part. So it's kind of like I don't even feel bad for y'all at this point. So it's really just Vanderbilt. I'm like, oh, Vanderbilt, get yourself a win. So I understand the logic. It's just not the way I am. Hillbilly says, no. In most instances, the second best team in the SEC is usually much better than the most division winners in the other leagues. And I get 100% agree. I don't agree, but I understand. That's just not what I want. You asked me what, not you Hillbilly, but they asked me earlier what I want, and I do not want. I do not want humans in the humans not playing on the field in the equation of deciding who goes to the playoff. I'm tired of that. Let's decide it on the field. Will and Brian won't work. That's oil and water. I'd be interested to know why you think that, Pop Winter. Moose needs to be a coordinator, never a head coach. I don't know if that was Muschamp, if you meant other than Moose. Maybe an autocorrect. All right, I've caught up for the most part on the comments and stuff. And just as a quick reminder, if you are enjoying the content today, please consider hitting that like button. It does help the stream out. So I talked about the guy from Boise State. I think that's interesting. And then I think the other thing, the coordinator search that kind of throws maybe a monkey wrench in it, but is pretty obvious, and that is the hiring of Sarkisian at Texas. And obviously that puts Tom Herman into the coordinator potential category for Auburn. It also removes a couple of maybe, or at least makes it harder to get some coordinators because Sarkisian now is looking for one, and then Alabama is looking for one. So if you're a big-time coordinator and you have the opportunity to go to either Auburn or Alabama currently, which one do you choose? It sucks for me to say that, right? I'm just being logical here. This is the time that I'm actually going to be logical. But which one do you choose? You choose Alabama because of what they've got going on right now and the sustained success, especially if you are a Tom Herman. I think Tom Herman might end up over there at Alabama. Maybe. So a lot of people think that, I forget his last name, but the Ole Miss guy is heading that way. Probably would make sense. A lot of people want him for the Auburn coordinator job. I'm still convinced that the offensive coordinator that we get is going to be someone probably that, if it's being speculated on, it's like a lower name in terms of recognizability. That I think Brian's going to bring in his guy. Does that make sense? Like someone that is within his coaching tree or things like that. The other thing that's funny about this, Kellen Moore has turned down, apparently, accordingly to allegedly, the head coaching job for Boise State. It means one of two things. He doesn't want to go over there and be the head coach. He's got a plan and a setup to become a head coach in the NFL, or maybe he wants to come coach at Auburn. I don't think so, but maybe, right? It would be nice. So while I don't have a solid idea on the offensive coordinator, I do think still that it's going to be someone that we're not expecting. At least it's going to be like Brian's hire, right? Nobody really saw that one necessarily coming. There were some people who were throwing his name out early, but it wasn't like a solid thing. I think he brings in his guy to run his system for his first couple years, so that is all on him. True Georgia champion. What? Thank you so much. It says, great podcast. You're the first I heard to announce the head coach hire, and you've earned my subscription. I appreciate that. Now, I want to make sure you understand that this is our YouTube channel, and we actually do our podcast on Apple Podcasts and all that stuff. So I hope you'll subscribe here, obviously, and hit the notification bell, but obviously do it on Apple Podcasts or whatever you listen to, because we do all that stuff over there. But appreciate you being here, and thank you for the kind words. Okay, John is clarifying that Moore just got a contract extension. So he is obviously very comfortable where he is and probably is looking at being lined up for an NFL job somewhere with the way he's risen. So I don't see him going anywhere, if that is true, John. Harson's an offensive guy, not worried about the OC. First priority is a recruiter. I disagree. I completely disagree. The first priority is a defensive coordinator for me, because right now, while you're going to be instilling a new offense, trying to teach your quarterback a third new offense, you have got to make sure your defense that you have currently, and that doesn't mean that recruiting's not important, but the priority has to be defense right now and maintaining what we have, because we have the talent on the field to withstand the offensive storms that are going on in the SEC right now. Excuse me. But yes, that is where you and I will disagree a little bit on that one. And the Dusty confirmed that he's staying in the NFL. And I'm happy for Kellen on that one, right? Because a guy that got not gypped, but every time he was up for the Heisman, there was someone just slightly better. And one time it was Cam Newton. And you just could see the look in his eyes at the ceremony. It's like, if I could have just been here when Cam Newton wasn't here, I'd have this Heisman trophy. But now he's getting his success, and I'm happy for him. I think he's going to be a great head coach one day. Let's see. In terms of you were saying that you were referring to an offensive recruiter. Okay, yeah, I can get in line with that thinking. So I would say yes. Then if you're going to instill your people as offensive staff mainly, then I think that you do probably need to focus on offensive recruiting. And I think you can do that by keeping a Cadillac Williams, who brought in Tank Bigsby, because I think that's the key to keeping Tank, and I think he's going to be a great recruiter. He already has proven that in his 1 year, right? I know it's just 1 year. But what say you give Cadillac a alumni for Auburn, a All-American for Auburn, the keys to be your head recruiter? How does that look? That looks pretty dang good in my eyes. Give it over to him. I love it. Pop says, regardless of who Auburn hires, Auburn must give them time to gel. And yes, DC first. Winning games is a big part of recruiting also. Yes, that is true. That is what solves recruiting sometimes is winning. So off of what you said here, I agree with your statement that Auburn must give time to gel. It has been one of my biggest problems and I say this with all love to my Auburn family members, with our impatience. We have to be willing to ride out the storm for an extended period of time to maintain levels of success. And it was very frustrating that we weren't able to do that. So in some other areas. But yeah, I do think that you're right there. Time to gel is necessary. If you remember yesterday, we talked about predictions, and I predicted year one would be kind of what people would love to throw around, a mediocre year, 7-5, going to a bowl game. At that level, the type of bowl game you get into, I think they would get a bowl win. I think year two, you have a little bit of a rise in success. I'm not talking conference championship, but I'm talking maybe contending for it, maybe coming up just short. And that kind of gets people excited. And I think year three is going to be like a level off, maybe equal or just a little bit below that second year. And what's going to really be the thing for Coach Harsin is year four. If he can survive year four, we might be okay. In my prediction that Auburn will become the Tennessee, and I should have been saying Texas as well, for the next couple of decades will be proven false, and I will be very happy about that. I'm willing to be wrong because it means Auburn wins. John Chavos, a lot of people have already said that for or Chavos for DC. I have to look into him. I haven't done a lot of research on him. Del McGee, I do love Del McGee. I thought he was going to get a look at offensive coordinator last year for Coach Malzahn. I would consider him like an upper tier rising star. So yeah, I think maybe if he wants to break away from Georgia and kind of expand himself a little bit. But I think the thing you've got to think about with his name popularity, will he be there a long time? I think Coach Harsin offensively wants a guy that's going to be there for a while. And I know that Dell is a running backs coach, right? So that would be an upgrade for him, right? But yeah, I don't know. Mark, Mark, you got to get over the Malzahn stuff, buddy. The change has already happened. No one's, but I disagree that it was time for a change. What always fascinates me is the level of. Sometimes it comes across, and he maybe didn't mean it this way, as hatred for Coach Malzahn. It just blows my mind. Oh wow, this name, Brandon Cox for OC. Boy never loses to Bama. Dusty, you have a point. I don't know that he's in the coaching. In fact, I pretty much know. I think we're friends on Facebook, and I think he's like in business or real estate now, so I don't know that he'll be there. I think we can win faster if we use the transfer rules effectively this year. So, yes, I do think we need to use the transfer rules effectively. However, we cannot focus on winning, if that makes, let me try to phrase this to where it makes sense, and there's a little disagreement with it. We have to stop focusing on winning quickly. That is what got us in the situation like what Gene Chizik did. We did it the wrong ways, brought in the wrong people, and it imploded on us. So if you want a Gene Chizik scenario, okay. I mean, I know that got us a national championship, but we're changing coaches every 4 years. No. I would say that right now, while we do need, I agree that we need to take the transfer rules and use them effectively. We don't need to make decisions which gets us the most winning fast. We need to focus on sustained stability for the program. Isaac, what's up, man? Said I wanted to stay. Appreciate you dropping in, man. Always appreciate that. Let's see. Ooh, where am I at? Took even Jimbo a while to get TAMU back in line. Saban was 7-6 his first year at Bama. Our fan base has to be patient the next few years. I agree, Josh. We are a very impatient bunch, and it's because we are looking across the state at East Mississippi College. And I don't mean the community college. Dan Quinn is DC. I don't really know. Dan Quinn doesn't really excite me. Have you seen them lose a lead? You want a guy that has made his billing on losing leads? That's what you want as your defensive coordinator? That doesn't excite me at all. Maybe I'm wrong, Barlow. Maybe I'm wrong, but like history there doesn't look good for me. Dell would be a running back coach and recruiting coordinator, so that means you sacrifice Cadillac and you potentially sacrifice Tank. And I know maybe you're assuming that Dell would be able to convince him, and maybe you're right. If we get Dell, we need to make him offensive coordinator because that's a lateral move for him, right? Even if he gets, I think he's already the recruiting coordinator for, for Georgia. So Dell, I don't think comes to Auburn for a lateral move. Offensive coordinator, yes, but I don't know. Let's see. Yes, we are in trouble. Yes, we are. Hold on. Not spending on football near enough to recruit. Chavos, DC, LSU. LSU's good. Chavis, is that what y'all are talking about? Chavis, not Chavos. Okay, so I think I've caught up on that now. I'm trying to understand all that. We were not spending enough on football. That is very well known. When your head coach, Coach Malzahn at the time, has to give over $2 million of his own to get the project to go, that tells you something. That, and that's what frustrates me about the whole Malzahn situation is the man never had full support. Never. And then what could he have done if he had had that full support? Because he had a sustained level of success, to what degree we can argue, but had sustained level of success for a long period of time and could have been longer while we rode out the storm that is Alabama right now and potentially Georgia. So putting money into your program has to be a priority. And it can't be because you want to see a coach fail, which some people did. Did we bring in the wrong people or did we not develop them after they got there? John, I will just, the word develop is one of those big words that, and I'm not using it against you, sir, but just because you brought it up. Develop is one of those big words that people like to throw around because it sounds good, but when you really start analyzing it and talking about that, it's not as strong of an argument. I would say that we brought in the wrong people. If you looked at the way the program, and when I say wrong people, that's coaches, that's players and recruits. If you looked at the way the program in that last year under Gene Chizik was falling apart from the inside, it's kind of hard. I love Gene Chizik. I was not happy to see him go in such a quick manner, but it's hard for me to argue when you have a 3-win season after you are 2 years removed from a national championship and you've got players getting going off campus and getting shot and killed. You've got players that are getting arrested for drugs consistently. Discipline issues where they're having to sit out games. Some selfish stuff too as well. I think there's evidence abound that they brought in the wrong people, which got a little bit of success, some great success, but it really, really wasn't worth it in the long run, in my opinion. Chandler Fullman's in the house on Twitter. What's going on, Chandler? This could get crazy over here. Let's see. OC for Bama, DC for Auburn. Sounds like something in the making. Don't understand that one. Money coming home is a motivator for Dell. Hopefully, that might be a good motivator. Yeah, but I think he would need a little bit more than money in that, because no one wanted to invest in his leadership. I guess you're talking about, so I think John and I are on opposite ends of the spectrum here. So I don't know how long you've been here on our streams, John. So I'm going to probably not try to bore everybody else with this again. Maybe we can talk about it another day. But when you take a shot at success at 4 to 5 it wasn't 4 to 5 losses a year at most. It was 4 on average, right? You're not looking at the whole picture, in my opinion. You're looking just at a win record and not looking at the whole picture. And I think that's what got us into this situation, not because of anything you did, but because of a mentality there. Let's see. I disagree. Let's see. I disagree with AU fans being impatient. Our record lately versus LSU, UGA, Bama is because of frustration, especially the UGA fiasco. We just don't want to lose 4+ games every year. And I get the frustration, and we talk a lot about in this stream about, people are like rolling their eyes. Kyle, here you go again. Emotions and context. Somewhere in the middle, they have to meet to form a reality. It doesn't negate the emotions of the situation, doesn't negate the context of the situation. But the reality is somewhere in the middle, and it may sway over here towards more the emotional side. It may sway more towards the context side. But you're going to be better if you sway always a little bit more towards the context side. Every time. Context should inform your reality a little bit more than your emotions. And emotions of 4 to 5 losses will make you make stupid decisions that can wreck a program for a long, long time. And that's kind of where I sit at on that. Jim Schwartz as DC. I don't know who that is. Don't know that at all. But yeah. All right. Let me do this. I want to sign off with our Twitter folks and thank them for being here. Really appreciate y'all tuning in today. And if you haven't, come check it out over on YouTube. And we'll hope to see you again soon. War Eagle, folks. So most of you on YouTube know that I stay on with y'all just a little bit longer. And here's the game that I play to see how far it drops down with people who haven't learned that now. And it's amazing, actually, how much of y'all have learned to not just leave right after I say bye to the Twitter folks. I just do that because I have to turn one of y'all off before the other, and it just so happens to be them. And you guys are the higher numbers anyway, so I want to reward y'all for being here. So let me cover a couple of things, and we can talk about some final thoughts, last minute things. If you want to talk about basketball, we can. I don't have a time limit on be here, but I do want to make sure that while we have most of y'all still here, I remind you that we are a podcast network, and if you haven't, please do consider at least giving us a check out. It's not just my voice. We have several voices. I have put the Apple link in the chat window right now if you'd like to check that out, and I hope that you will. And you can find it on any podcast format: Spotify, TuneIn, all that good stuff. Google Podcast, Amazon Music. I think it's up there now. If you'd like to check that out, please do consider subscribing. Here's the big thing too: if you are listening on Apple Podcast, you could take less than 2 minutes, really, because that's all it really takes. You don't have to write a novel. If you could give us a review, even if you think it deserves a bad review, on Apple Podcast, you can give a star rating and then a quick little summary like War Eagle or something like that. That actually helps us out on Apple Podcasts, get out to other Auburn fans. The only other thing that I usually remind you of, and again, I want to give a shout out to my man Michael Floyd, who just joined as a Patreon member at the Auburn Booster Club. You can do it for as little as $1 a month. He became a mega booster, so he gets all the good things. So if you would like to check that out at the very least, even if you don't want to sign up and just see what maybe it's worth your time, it does help support the content that we do here. Let's see. I think I've done everything now that I need to do over here. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't, please smash the like button if you are enjoying the content today. I'm working through some sinus drainage, which is almost done, but it's still kind of like, getting in the throat and stuff, which is why I have a small cough and things like that. It's not the big one, folks. Don't panic. All right, let me back up here and see what's going on. Let's see. Dusty says, context, Auburn should not lose 4 to 5 games for 7 straight years. NFL time. War Eagle, have a good day. Okay, Dusty, appreciate you being here, man. Context, I would disagree with your context. If you don't think that a team facing the juggernaut that is Alabama, Georgia, and LSU during this timeline is not highly likely to have at least 4 losses, you're not being realistic. Personally, that's how I feel. Schwartz, not Schwartz, Eagles DC. Okay, well, I've seen the Willie Anderson thing pop up a lot for O-line coach. I would love to see Willie come back to Auburn. I love my Auburn folks. We had Junior Rosegreen pop in on the Twitter viewing yesterday, and he was just like making me love all his suggestions. He was saying T-Rob and bringing this Auburn player. And I was like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have faith that Harsin will change our mindset into 4th and 1 attitude. He stresses we need a reset, finally looking forward to a new season. So, Mark, I will say that I have faith in Harsin as well, but I also can look outside of my, I'm not saying blind faith, but like I by nature as an Auburn family member, love and support Auburn pretty much no matter what. I mean, obviously, if they did something morally or unethical, I gotta, kind of rebuke them a little bit, right? But outside of that, I am diehard, and I will love and support whoever is coaching my Tigers. I even loved Sonny Galloway until we learned how amoral and unethical he was, and he needed to go. And it took me the switch on that for the baseball situation flipped like within seconds when I learned some things that were turned out to be true. So it's not that I don't have faith in Harsin. I hope you don't read that into that. I like that you're buying into the slogans and stuff like that, but they're just slogans. I love the 4th and 1 attitude. I get it, and I hope that he instills, and I believe that he can, but they're just slogans. We can be rah-rah and believe what all these things that just, are going to work, but you have to take a step back and look at the context of what's going on in the NCAA, in the SEC, in the SEC West, on the recruiting landscape. If you don't do that, you will continually be disappointed and not be able to weather the storm when it gets a little rough. And that's what happened for most people under the Gus Malzahn era. But I am looking forward to the season because I'm excited to see what it's going to look like under his leadership. Look, I'm very, very happy. The more I see him, the more I'm happy with the choice, even though I still don't agree with the decision to fire Coach Malzahn. And my displeasure or happiness with Coach Harsin would not have been based upon, like, if that makes sense. Like, I can still say that it was a bad choice to fire Coach Malzahn, but be happy with the choice because it's just about the decision, not the hire. Let's see. How our DC will match up with Bama OC since they are both new is what I'm saying. Yeah, that'll be an interesting matchup, right? But Bama is a machine right now. I don't think they're going to struggle too much, even bringing in a new name. It's not about the 4 or 5 losses alone. I think it's consistency of head-scratching losses, performances within those 4 or 5, meaning losing to teams we should probably beat and look inept in some of those losses. So all that is a matter of perspective, 14. In your opinion, we looked inept, but if you looked at actually what was going on with the game, maybe it was just they figured out how to stop us. And that's coaching still. I'm not taking the that away from the coaches. Here's what I'm trying to get some of y'all to realize. You got to stop the 4 to 5 losses. We're so focused on a win record that you can't see the bigger picture. And there's a much bigger picture at this. I know that seems easy to say that from my sense. You got to get off that. I promise you, when time goes by, we will look back at the Coach Malzahn firing as a bad decision. You'll probably never admit it. Not you specifically, but just speaking generally. But it will be looked back as one of the baddest. And that's not a reflection on Coach Harsin yet. It's just looking at the program's stability for the long term. Josh, the Penn State next year will be a huge for morale for the fan base. If Coach Harsin can go into Happy Valley, no matter how good or bad Penn State may be, that'll be a big one. I'm really excited for that one in general because I hope we're back to a situation nationwide where we can do these things again and I can get a ticket for a decent price because I do want to go to Happy Valley and go see a whiteout because that will be incredible. I love going to visiting stadiums when I can, and that wasn't on my list. So, yes, if Coach Harsin does that, he will have a lot of happy Auburn fans. All right, I think that's all I have for you today. Hopefully, as Monday hits, that's usually a big news cycle day. We'll have a lot more to talk about. I think I will be able to go live tomorrow. So be tuning in. Well, not a specific time. Hopefully, maybe sometime in the morning, late morning. But we'll see what happens. Because if news is planned to break later in the day, might have to wait later. So I appreciate all of y'all being here today. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this. And I'll talk to you later. War Eagle.